guys all take a moment with me and close your eyes. Feel this precious land we're on, this ground, this earth, this Pachamama. And not only feel that, but feel the presence of all the men around you. We're so blessed to be nourished by each other's company, each other's hearts, each other's gifts, consciousness. But keep your eyes closed, and can you feel the men next to you from your heart without looking at them, without speaking to them? Can you feel the men close to you? Can you sense their presence, their essence? Can you know them from your core, from your gut, from your na'au center? Can you feel everybody at once right now? Just feel the collective of shared space, presence, beingness, manhood, heart. Raise your hand if you could feel most of the men in the room here on some level in the space. You can sense the magnitude that's here. Yeah. And if not, keep practicing while we're here. Keep welcoming that. Thank you. You know, in my experience, we're in relation to everything and everyone all the time, right? Especially the self, right? This being, this body, this mind, this heart, this spirit moving through me. And we've been living in a world that has not been valuing that. Agree? Not as much as we could be, right? Not like ancestors, indigenous cultures, people before us who actually had to survive. Something shifted along the way for whatever reason, where we began to disassociate from being in absolute connection and attunement with pretty much everything and everyone around us, right? Right? What's most needed? To reclaim that, right? To reclaim this ability to be in attunement with the elements, with our ancestors, with the spirits, with ourselves, with our families, with the people we work with, right? I believe it's the front line of human evolution. That if we don't relate well, nothing goes well, which we're seeing, right? How many of you have or are suffering in a relationship on some level? Most of us, right? Most of us. How many of you come from a family where there was broken connections, hardships, trauma, stresses? All of us, for the most part. Most of us, right? Yeah, so we're all coming in with the impressions of ancestry and previous life experiences and generations of family where something's been lost and broken very often. Not always. The amazing thing, though, is that there's this line coming through all of our ancestry that's like a living will of goodness. And we forget that. If I had a wounded father that hurt me, I kind of push away most of my family. Anybody know that experience? Like, fuck my family. I'm going to be different. I'm going to go do my own world. I'm going to leave their world and create mine. Anybody done that? Yeah. Does their world come with you? Does it show up again? Unfortunately so, right? I believe all of us have somewhere along the line healthy ancestors. We've got forces of life, of love, of history, of experience. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Something good happened along the way many, many, many times for us to be here and have this blood and these bodies and this time, right? How many of you know how to really honor that? Good. Some. I don't. I'm learning. I'm remembering. I'm trying to find that again. You know, and in some ways, if I don't have that connection, it's really hard for me to show up with you all the way. If I'm not resourced, connected to my source, connected to the living life force, energy, history, DNA, whatever you want to call it, on some level, I'm limited in my ability to know you. Feel true? Yeah. The beautiful thing, though, is that at any moment, at any time, we can reclaim that, we can choose that, we can call it in. So right now, my friends, let's all, on some level, welcome our ancestors to be here behind us. to live through our own experience right now, each breath we take. See if you can feel from both sides of your family some degree of generations behind you. See if you can welcome their presence, because whether you know it or not, they're living through you in some way. Feel that. Let's take a minute of silence and call that in. And if you have children, put them in front of you, because it goes right through you into them. Who feels like you just got bigger? Who feels like you got more capacity than you had just a few breaths ago? Yeah. Is this available all the time? In any moment? What's needed when you're fighting with your wife? Perspective. Yeah, what else? Patience. Breath. Yeah. Yeah. Wisdom. Yep. Gratitude. Humility. Yes. Thank you. What up? Yeah. Oh, thank you, responsibility. And the other one no one said yet is we need to be resourced. We need to be in alignment with ourselves. We've got to be connected. We've got to have powers and forces of ancestry, spirit, heart that are available to us so that when you start getting yelled at or someone's upset with you, your system doesn't go, or, that you have this resource ability to go, wait a minute, I'm starting to get taken by my reactivity rather than my ability to respond to someone in front of me who's having a hard time. You guys know the difference, right? How many of us get taken by reactivity? Way too often, huh? Yeah. If it boils down to relational skills, the first one to me comes down to like, how connected am I? But where does that start? It starts right here, right? Starts in my own being, center, connection to the Aina, to the land, to my ancestors, but maybe even to spirit, to what I call God, love, truth, spirit, right? If I'm not plugged in and I'm not a conduit of that connection, I'm limited. If I'm limited, it's way easier for me to get intoxicated. And I don't just mean like smoking a spliff or drinking some drinks or doing porn, but intoxicated by the reactivity in me, the overwhelm, the pain, the trauma, the imprints of my family generations that can hijack my consciousness. So relationally, I like to use the word intoxication because it's accurate. When I get to a certain degree of upset, frustration, overwhelm, there's a surge of chemicals in my system, and it's really hard to stop me from doing something I don't want to do. Right? Like yell at my kids. Or worse, right? You guys all know that experience? Where like the best of you is like, I would not do what my dad did. I don't want to be that way. I won't do that. But then something sneaks in. We get hijacked by being upset, or our honey or our friend touches that button that lights up the system, and all of a sudden we're intoxicated, we're taken. And what happens? Usually it goes back and forth for a while until one person blows the room. Most often. Either checks out, shuts down, or leaves, right? Anybody know how to leave? Anybody know how to stonewall and shut down and get cold? Yeah. Anybody know how to fight? Yeah. So relationally, we're here together, all of us, in some ways, to upgrade our operating system. We inherited some like 1950 early computers. In some ways, we got brilliant minds. Phenomenal, brilliant minds all over. Totally intelligent. But they get in the way sometimes of like our gut knowing. Our primal intelligence. Our intuitive sense and our capacity to stay present with what's here right now. So part of getting intoxicated is this mental engine that spins a whole bunch of stories and amplifies what's wrong. Right? You guys know that experience? Amplifies what's wrong, tells the story again and again. Tries to enroll my bros at around a beer, like, dude, my wife. Fuck, you know that feeling? And enrolls someone else to get on board with you of how you're victimized by your wife or your circumstances or your life, right? Most of us, we don't realize we're often racing for the victim position. Even if we're in fight, even if we're in rage and anger, we're racing for like, this situation, this person, this partner is making it hard for me. Is that the kind of men we want to be? Not really, right? We don't want to be on the victim position. We don't want to be in the villain position either, where we're hurting someone, where our anger is turning to aggression, and we're attacking, or we're saying things that actually are like sharp swords that hurt. We don't want to be doing that either. What's the other thing men do really well? We put on the dun-dun-dun-dun hero cape, right? I'll fix everything for you, baby. I'll get you money. I'll be there I'll take care of you. I'll show up as full as I can. I'll hero you from whatever trauma you've had or feelings you've hurt or anybody's ever hurt you. I'll show up 100%. I'll give up my needs sometimes until I can't anymore. Anybody else know that one? Fuck, man, right? That one's sneaky because our culture prides it, right? It prides that man, oh, I can take anything. He can endure. He can keep showing up. He can flow up until all of a sudden, he doesn't got the reserves anymore. He's not resourced. And he's on the drama triangle going around and around or across. Villain, victim, hero. They all feed each other. Our work relationally is to step off this drama triangle because it always leads to some form of entanglement. You guys know what that is, entanglement? Entanglement is that her wounds are locking with mine, or his wounds are relating with mine. They're perfectly feeding each other, and we're in this back and forth, and we're caught, and we keep repeating it again and again, despite how bad we want to break it, despite how different we want to be, despite how much we love each other. On some level, that entanglement, it's got such a sneaky magnetism that we stay in it until we get off the drama triangle. Which means until I take full responsibility for my own alignment, my own being, what's actually happening in me, the stories I do, the projections I put out there, and I go, what's actually happening in me? What's actually alive and really there? Not my idea of why I'm angry, which is probably not accurate. Why I think he or she did this thing to me, which might be part of the truth. But really, in most of us, when we are upset, frustrated, reactionary, stuck relationally, there's more going on than what our mind has made the story that we think is happening. And how do we find that out? Anybody? Listen. What else? Heal. What else? Introspection. What was the other one? Inquire. Yeah. What we do is we check in rather than check out. Most of us try to figure it out by like, let's go do Aya. Let's go journey with the medicine, which is good. Really good. But sometimes it's often checking out rather than really checking in. You know, whatever it is, like we're good at checking out. It could be our phone, could be food, could be anything. We all know them well, right? When we check in, all of a sudden we can hunt or track the landscape of our being. What's happening to me on a body level? Oh man, I'm tight in my shoulders. My heart's congested. I'm holding stuff in my belly. There's a lot in that. That could inform me of what's actually really going on. Or there's a bunch of emotional energy in me and it's just spinning and moving. I have no idea what's going on. And my mind's going really fast. When we check in, when we drop in and go, what's actually happening in me? We begin to reclaim our agency. Which is our ability to go like, okay, here's what's true. Here's what's happening to me no matter whether I was angry, I was scared, I was shutting down. I can own it and go, you know what? Something in me just disengaged. Something in me began to check out. Something in me began to shut down. And I'm meeting it in me. And right now, there's nothing you have to do for that right now. I'm meeting it in me. First step. If I'm not able to meet anything going on inside of me, how can I expect you to, my friend? How can I expect my family to, my wife to, my friends to, right? They can meet me on some level and be there, but really the gift from them is going to be our presence. Their presence of like, I'm with you, what's going on for you, I'm here for you with whatever's there. Meet it, right? How many women in the world literally just want to be heard and seen and accepted? How many women in the world want to be fixed and changed and solve the problems for them? Not very many, right? And if they do, it's probably because they're really deeply wounded. Like if they're thinking that you're going to save them, and they're thinking that you're the doorway to heal, and that you're going to be the one who comes in like Tarzan superhero, most likely they've got some deeper work to do. You know, we live in a culture too that's polarizing that men have the problem, right? And that we're fucked up and that we've been doing it for generations. Absolutely true. But it doesn't mean it's not on the other side too. And in some ways, the feminine carries a whole different matrix of wounding. Whether we're a man or a woman, the feminine in us carries a whole different matrix of wounding, right? How many times have feminine been perpetrated, overpowered, controlled, dominated, shut down, silenced, right? What comes out in the feminine when those buttons get lit? Whether you're a man or a woman, what comes out in the feminine? Rage, yeah. Sometimes we call that the fiendess, where nothing is satiable and everything's wrong. And you can't fix that, bro. Right? The fiendess is also called Kali, right? The wrath of Kali, tongue out, swords in hands, heads being chopped off. And for very good reasons, the feminine in the world needs to have Kali because it's been suppressed, overpowered, denied, not honored for too long. Right? And that includes nature. That includes the way the earth's being raped. That includes our water. That includes so many aspects of how humans are living on the planet right now. And one of the number one things I love about being here with you guys is that we have a balance of masculine and feminine, and that people are actually welcome to be seen and loved from the healthy feminine and the healthy masculine. How many of you are feeling that? Some of you guys name, what's your favorite part of being here in this space, with these men? Pop it out. Connection, vulnerability, openness, authenticity, acceptance, growth, yeah. Ownership. Yeah. Brothers. What was that? Shadow? Facing shadow? Opportunities to really show up and a safe space to fully show up. Because that's the other thing. As men, we often have not had environments where we could actually be in our full colors, where we could be in our essence, because we carry often history and generations of fear of being a tall poppy and getting your head chopped off, or knocked down, or made wrong, or ridiculed. Because I know what you guys did in high school, but I know the favorite thing was like make your bro wrong, even though I absolutely love him. Knock him down, poke him, push him, stretch him, which is beautiful, right? It's an awesome thing. But on a deeper level, the other thing's not happening. Like, bro, I fucking see you. Wow. You've been one of the best friends to me for all of high school, and man, I honor and respect you so much. It happens in the movies, but I don't think it's happened a lot. How many guys have had that when you were young? Not very many, a few, right? How many of you had healthy mentors, though, who could see you? Yeah. How much of a difference did that make? Yes. Kind of like what we're doing with these young men right now, right? Is they're being seen and admired and supported and healthy modeled another way. So let's bring this back to how we as men can increase our capacity to relate well or update our operating system, which is how I like to think of it. And the first way I believe we update our operating system is we learn to balance out where we relate from. Because most of us are still relating from here. We've got this mental engine, like I said, it's brilliant, but most of our relating is like, well, what's up, what do you do, da, 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 da. And there's a deficiency in my heart, but even more importantly, in my gut of knowing you. So the first thing that I think is massively, essentially important that I've learned from my mentors is that if I'm not relating from here and feeling and knowing and letting the primal part of me know where someone's hurting without them saying a word, then I'm limited in my relational skills, right? If I'm not relating as well from my heart in the sense of like my heart is open, curious, willing to connect, willing to be authentic and vulnerable, willing to be raw and honest and ruthless too. It's not a positive, negative thing, right? I'm limited, right? I'm not operating on my full capacity. And another level is that if we're not operating on some level of spirit connection, whatever that is for us, right? It doesn't matter where it comes from, but on some level of like, I'm listening to the forces of God, spirit, love, energies that are informing me more than my limited viewpoint of reality. That's my favorite part about any medicine, is a really good medicine helps to build that bridge and strengthen it. Agreed? That'd be the best part in my experience of medicine, is it building that bridge to whatever we call spirit, love, alignment, truth, nature, so that more of us comes online. And when all of us is online, gut, heart, and mind, what's possible? Fuck yeah, right? When that's all on, how do you meet your woman? Holy. What does she feel from you? Yeah. Cherished, yeah. And met. Many women are starving to simply be met by the fullness of presence that doesn't have an agenda just to fuck them, to want something, to be healed by them because they're your mother, whatever it is being played out where there's a deficiency of love. Because the other thing that goes on relationally is that so many of us have learned to outsource our needs. Like, I didn't get my needs from my mom, I didn't get enough approval from my dad, I didn't get what I need in the world. Society makes me think, you look at Instagram, it's like, I'm never going to be fucking good enough. Every single one of you is shining brighter than me on Instagram. And so what happens if I believe that story, I'm going to look for my relationships for validation from you, from the lake, from everything. And on some level, as soon as I'm looking for validation outside myself, or love, or sex, or pleasure, I'm not operating fully. I'm setting the stage for some kind of codependent dynamic to come alive. And then I get caught in that current, and it's a tough one to get out. Especially if both partners have made an unconscious agreement to play out some codependent thing where each has a story that the other one's going to meet their needs. And I'm not saying that our needs aren't met with love and connection and relationship and children, just there's different levels of them. If the boy in me is not met by the man in me, the boy in me is going to sabotage the relationship. Right? The boy in me is going to sabotage my work relationships if he's still looking for approval from my boss. But if I'm able to connect, call in my ancestors, resource myself, come into alignment, breathe, love and accept and meet any place in me that's been pushed away, not loved, not accepted, I begin the process of really meeting another. And it's not that we have to be 100% there when we enter a relationship, but we got to keep going in that direction. Right? We got to keep choosing to reclaim that, to find that again, to resource that, to remember that. And every time something goes off, we get disconnected, I get a fight, I shut down, I leave the room. I got to go as fast as I can to hunt that and find that again. What am I hunting and finding? Oh, yeah. Truth? Approve? Clarity? No one has said reconnection. All of them are accurate. I'm not saying that. Self-authority. But the most important is reconnection to the place in me that has the capacity to face whatever's in front of me. Some will say, and I've heard this, you probably have heard this, that life or God or spirit doesn't put in front of us things we can't handle. Even if that means we're facing death and dying of cancer. Something in us can handle it, right? Something in us will go through that experience and we'll journey through it and we'll do the dance, right? So if that's true, when we start complaining about our reality and why the relationship's so hard and things are going on, where are we coming from? Fear. And the victim, we're on the drama triangle again. If we're going, man, things are getting hard, I'm facing every single one of my edges, I better resource myself more, I better find my center, I better do whatever I need to do to reclaim my connection to myself, to my ancestors, to spirit, to life, so I can meet what's going on inside of me and what's in front of me. Because if I don't do that, I'm going to keep reacting to everything and everyone around me rather than responding. Right? When we react to everything, what happens? Chaos. What else? Sabotage. Yeah. What else? Pain. Recycling pain, huh? Disconnection. Thank you. Burnout. Yeah, exhaustion, right? When we respond, what happens? Power. Someone say healing? Yeah, what else? Communication, yeah. New pathways, thank you. Possibility. Mutual understanding. Yes, you know what? So when I respond, I'm meeting there, and then I'm going to be informed moment to moment rather than know. Most men want to know. I want to know exactly what the recipe is. I'll fucking do it again and again. Just tell me how many push-ups, what to eat, how to show up, how many deep breaths to take, and I'll be good. Bullshit, right? Just tell me like exactly what I do when I'm with my woman. She does that thing. Give me the recipe. No. So the way that life and spirit and whatever has us arranged, it's asking each of us to come into more capacity, into our agency, and our ability to actually navigate what's in front of us with creative power. True creative power. Which means almost always we don't know what's next. Our partners are never the same partner. Even though my mind thinks my wife is the same thing and I have the same concerns about her, on some level, if I drop in, she's different than she was last week. Right? And if I'm not returning to that, remembering that, and choosing that again, I'm going to start to generate some story about her that does what? Disconnects, drama, suffering, yeah. Yes, thank you. Limits what's possible. Ultimately puts me on the drama triangle. And then I'm judging and assessing and thinking I know what she should or shouldn't do, or wishing she would do something else rather than just being fucking real. Like, Dave, I feel disconnected from you. You've been looking at social media for 2 hours. Let's drop in, let's connect. It's real for me. It's real. And I face it a lot, and it doesn't necessarily go away. But how I meet it, how I engage with it, how I connect with her around it, I'm in an exploratory dance, because ultimately it's not my responsibility what she does with that or not. But it is my responsibility to create what I want with her. So there's a big difference from complaining about what she should be doing or shouldn't be doing than requesting what I want and redirecting the energy. So as a man who's centered and grounded in my being, I have the possibility to direct the energy. One of the qualities of a healthy masculine is that healthy masculine takes the lead in ways to bring things in a direction that takes your partner deeper than they would go on their own. Right? How many men know the feeling of like giving your power away to your woman and letting her make many decisions and kind of waiting for her to decide and the feeling of that? What does it feel like? And what's her complaint when you do that? What happens for her? How does she feel?
It's hard. I do everything. All right. Just tell me what you want to eat.
Yeah. She steps into a masculine often that she doesn't want to be in, that she doesn't thrive in. Just like if you overly step into a feminine and become a little submissive and don't participate fully, which means withdraw, shut down, pull away, implode, on some level, you know, you're in an energy you don't want to be in, and neither does she want you to be in. So we have this creative power. And when we reclaim alignment and get centered with our breath, with our whatever our practices are, they're not right or wrong, there's so many, right? It's more about the choice. We were talking earlier with shadow dancers that ultimately we could talk about all kinds of recipes to transform relationship, but what it really comes down to is what are you committed to? And are you committed to showing up to meet yourself again and again in every single moment and discover what's possible? Or are you unconsciously committed to repeating the same patterns for lifetimes or generations, which is true for most of us. And this is one of the relational things I got from my mentor, Katie Hendricks, was that most of us don't realize that we're relating unconsciously more often than consciously, which means that we have unconscious agreements with people we get together with that we're playing out that come from what we learned and inherited. It's not like I made this choice, like, I'm going to not feel good enough, I'm going to call in a woman that helps bolster my feelings, and she's going to be there for me until I get it. It's not going to show up that way, right? It's going to show up as like hot sex, fucking attractive, and then she looks at another man and that whole thing happened. System closes off, right? So part of our work here, whether it's around relational skills or our own lives and what we're taking from here, are we making conscious choices about who we want to be? Are we making conscious commitments about what we're doing, where we're putting our life force energy, where we're putting our attention, where we're shining the sunlight of our consciousness? Because when the sun shines on things, what happens? They grow or they dissolve, right? So when we got pain and wounds and things and we shine the sunlight on it, what happens? It transforms, right? The sun's a transformational element. The grass grows, things transform, water dries up, things disappear. All the dog shit on the beaches gets transformed mostly by sunlight. Right? Becomes sand. So us as men relationally, we've got to recommit to the power of our transformational energy and our ability to meet what's in front of us with true creative power, which means we've got to be connected. We've got to have some degree of agency and alignment. Alignment with our own heart, ground, spirit, And there's no right or wrong way to do that. That's the exciting part. There's no perfect recipe, right? Spiritual teachers have recipes all over the world, and they're probably all good, done with the right heart and intent. The question is, how are you going to wield it? And what's your recipe that you're going to explore until something else comes along? So the big question is, what's in the way of us choosing a commitment and deciding again and again and again and again and again? Huh? Ourselves. Maybe not. I hear that term of like, myself is in the way. I wouldn't say that's truly who you are that's in the way. I'd say that's conditioning, old programming, and what we've inherited from generations that comes in and clouds our vision. Right? Clouds our capacity. And we get to go, all right, am I choosing the sunlight of my attention and I'm going to put it on the person in front of me and myself at the same time? Or am I going to cloud it and get intoxicated and shut down again and stay in the cycle? So take a moment to turn next to a brother. Share with the man, what's the main way that you often check out? Go ahead and finish what you're sharing. Okay, please come on back. I want to share with you my favorite relational tool that is probably the most impactful thing I've ever learned. And I want you to connect with another man after that. So there's this tool I've learned that I use almost all the time. And it's called looping of awareness. And many of us, we learn as a young child when we sense that our parents aren't okay, or aren't fully showing up, or aren't really present, or are wounded, or something's going on. We start to actually send our attention out to feel where they are, because if they're not okay, we're not okay. You know what I'm talking about? Who had that? If my parents are okay. So what ends up happening often is if we learn to do that enough when we're really young, that we enter a big room of people, and we're actually doing that all the time with people. We've got our attention out on others and other situations, and not home in ourselves. The opposite is that something happened that had us really disconnect, some trauma, that our attention actually is so in ourselves that we actually don't know how to really share it with another. where like on some level we stay so pulled in that our system doesn't actually really know how to stay engaged and open the channel up. You could say that's a congested heart. But that side's true. Does anybody know that feeling in you? Where like everything gets pulled in a little bit and you actually don't know your woman wants you or your partner does and you're not actually to really feel them. There's almost like a numbness. You guys know that feeling? Like I know what love is, but something's in the way. I don't actually feel it. So what looping is I think of it as a rewiring of our nervous system. And what looping is bringing back this balance point of being able to simultaneously be aware of my own self. You know, my heart, my gut, my mind, my own alignment, and at the same time to be able to go out and sense you. And be curious about whether you're breathing, where are you holding pain, what's going on for you, and then come home to me. When we're conscious about it, we can learn to be with anyone or anything for the matter, like a tree, and we can have a simultaneous dance of completely connected to myself and highly sensitive, aware of the other. If we're not grounded in ourselves and we're highly sensitive, aware of the other, we're too sensitive. We're at the effect of environments and people. And my belief is that a lot of people who say, like, I'm way too sensitive, I can't be in those environments, usually it's because their system at some point in life learned to leave them and have to read everything around them to feel safe. Anybody know that feeling? I had it most of my life. My dad would be coming home and I could feel him 10 minutes before he opened the garage because I was already terrified of how he'd showed up. I was already terrified of whether I was going to get smacked or made wrong for eating too much food in the house or just because he's fucking having a bad day. So my system actually learned to be reading my dad, much like a dog knows when their owner's coming home. You guys know that feeling? The dog's attuned. Same thing. Animals are looping with their owners so they become like their owners. Is that phenomenal? That's the brilliance of our system, is ability to actually be in attunement with everything all the time. But when it's not firing right, it's in the way, right? It actually interrupts our system, and then we're limited again in our ability to actually really connect, really be with, or self-resource. So looping is a way of beginning to reprogram your system. So whenever you're with anybody or anything, if you can simultaneously dance between how here am I, what's actually alive in me, what's going on in me, and oscillate and be aware of this man, and his presence, and his energy, and curious about him, and then back home and me. So it's building a muscle like going to the gym of a sensitive capacity, but really it's turning on our primal instinct again. It's nothing special or voodoo or spiritual. It's actually a core instinct that every single hunter has. If I'm a really good hunter, I'm out in the woods waiting and I'm listening to every single sound. I'm feeling everything around me. I'm attuned to the bird that's informing me of the deer. Right? This is what First Nations folks have had, right? This is what the indigenous cultures of our world lived in out of necessity and out of beauty, right? That they were in attunement. So, you know, you have a Western guy go in the Brazilian forest and he's going to die, right? You go in the Amazon, you're going to die. But you walk with someone who's lived in the Amazon for generations and they're aware of every single subtle sign. I experienced that in Peru. I'm walking and a snake almost comes right up to me and this bro just puts his hand on my shoulder and stops. I wasn't aware of that snake coming. He was. Isn't that wild? And I consider myself to be somewhat sensitive, and I'm not, really, when it comes down to it. There's so much room to grow for all of us. So to me, looping is one of the ones, though, that we can bring home to our kids, to our family. If your child is wanting your attention, just loop with them. You don't have to say things, you don't have to talk, you don't have to bring something special up. Just have your attention on him and on you, or on her and on you, and let it be this dance of consciousness, dance of awareness. Any skilled being in the world is naturally doing this. We just don't know we're doing it. Most evolved healers, transformational agents are naturally doing this and really skillful at it. Anyone that's reading someone and getting intuitive hits is looping. They're accessing things. And at higher tiers of it or levels of it, we start to get more information about things that are going on that we can get curious about. We don't necessarily know, but we get curious impressions. You know? So for you as men, this is a gift to bring home. It's like, can I be aware of me and centered in me and grounded in me and not have to talk? If your woman wants to talk a lot, just get more centered in you and listen more fully and exchange your energy. It's not the words. Words actually get in the way a lot of times. It's the quality of how fully we are with ourselves and the other. I mean, everybody knows how it feels when someone's with you, but they're thinking about something else and not really with you. Right? So looping takes enough focus that you can't multitask. Except multitasking the fact that I'm aware of you and aware of me. And it's something that you aren't naturally going to be magical at. It's going to take, for me, I've got 20 years of it. 20 years of cultivating it, and little by little these gains. So it's not an overnight process. Unfortunately, nothing good is usually, right? Everybody knows that, you know? Nothing really worthwhile just kind of shows up magically very often unless it's some kind of miracle. Most of the time, it's got to be nurtured, fed, committed to, focused, and nourished. Hence why so many things like this work don't last if you don't go home and make a powerful commitment to apply it. You know? And that's in each of your hands on some level of like, what do you take with this fire? When you leave this fire, what do you take home and what are you going to feed? Are we going to feed the porn and the patterns and the things like that? Or are we going to feed and nurture the fire that's going to have us lead to more connections, more quality groups, friendships, deepening relationships, right? That's what we want. And so looping is a good practice. I want to have you turn to a different man. And here's how I want you to simply do it. I want you on your exhale to have attention on that man, on your inhale, attention on you. And just take a few minutes without saying anything. You don't have to stare in each other's eyes. Just oscillate your attention between yourself and the other and see what you could get curious about and sense and perceive and feel in yourself and the man that you're with. And if stuff comes up, just breathe a little deeper. Take another minute. Stay with it. Wonderful. Now begin to bring all of your attention back to you. And say thank you in some way without words. What'd you guys notice? What stood out to you? How was it? Yeah, it takes practice. It's a choice. It's a focus. Yeah. Yeah, nice. Beautiful. Did you hear that? Now I know I'm not projecting on him. In some ways I'm clean. How do I know? Oh. Yeah. Maybe. So that's the thing. It's a curiosity. We don't always know what's happening, but the curiosity opens a channel to be informed. And so that's part of our man thing too, is like, I want to know, did I do it right or thing, versus like, I'm kind of open to something new here that I'm discovering, and maybe I'm a little disturbed, so I'm assuming he is. Right? Or I'm a little anxious, or I'm really grounded, I'm noticing he's fidgety and I'm making up a story, he's thinking too much. I don't know. But on some level, something in me is going to start turning on that almost senses something even deeper, too. And where this starts to get juicy is when you start doing it more from a heart space and a core space than a mental space. When we first try something new, there tends to be a lot of mental concentration, right? Like when we're in flow state doing something, the mind is not involved much, right? But when we're trying something new, we've got to think about it and remember to do it and try it. So it's a little limited until we've cultivated it, where almost like these deeper layers emerge, which is the heart, which is sensing. And in my experience, the mind perceives a certain degree. It perceives like understanding through language, interpretation of what's going on, or understanding of like reality and structures and things going on. The heart reads things on a whole nother language. It reads more of a sense of like, not just emotions, but like felt sense of knowing, and it receives information that's entirely different than the mind and should not be digested by the mind. When we bring the information from the heart to the mind, it gets distorted very often, unless we're really clear. So in some ways, trying to decipher what's going on and know gets in the way of actually just experiencing and being curious and open. Like, think of a little baby, like a young one. They're not trying to figure out what's going on. They're in a discovery process of what's there, and it doesn't involve a need to know. It doesn't involve necessarily an understanding. It involves some mirror neurons and some trying on what they're experiencing, what they're seeing, what they're knowing. But it doesn't involve like this, like, oh, I think he or she's doing this thing, and this must be it, and maybe he wants that. And now, you following me? We're not here to solve all those riddles. We're going to get curious and discover. And when we drop that down to our gut, to our like core, what happens is there's this like deeper primal sense of knowing that includes primal sexual energy. But it's not only sexual energy. This is the challenge we've all grown up in, most of us, is we've had all this image-based sexuality, right? Whether that's a magazine or porn or videos or movies that display women in a lusty way that activates this center. But in real sexuality, it's like the yoni actually pulls the lingam in before it's even hard. Okay? Like penetrating and fucking a woman hard is all good and it's part of the dance. But there's another level that most of us don't really realize where the yoni's so alive that it actually starts to magnetize the lingam into it. That's a whole different experience. There's not a bunch of mental projection and activity and sexual stories and like eye activation. There's actually a whole being shared experience. And I know you guys know this, when things sync up enough that like there's just this connection that you could never describe, right? And where like the lights go on. And what happens if things go off sexually is our mind starts to make stories about and try things differently rather than get more relaxed, more sensitive, more open, more curious, more feminine in a certain way. You know, there's a time to penetrate. There's a time as a masculine to go in fucking hard and penetrate and take her and all those things. But there's also a time to like have this whole different receptivity. That's the gut. That's the na'au. The na'au, like when I'm working with people, I'm not thinking. My gut tells me sometimes like, oh, follow this. Or this might be what is going on with this man. I'm not saying I know. It's an exploration. It's a discovery of what's going on, and often it's accurate. Not always. Often it's accurate, right? And I think all of us have that. We just need to keep dropping into it and finding it and feeling it. So I want to do looping again, but I want to do it from the core. I want to have you turn to a different man, and I want you to explore just looping from your center, being all the way in the breath of your belly, and have your breath breathe all the way into your genitals, like breathe that deep. And let your breath sense and let yourself send some sensory information from your gut to that man and then back home to you. Really try this on, you guys, because it doesn't just come. We got to cultivate it. Wonderful. We're going to bring your attention back to you and close your eyes and sit with it for a moment. Take a moment to sit and bring yourself to center. Feel your gut. Feel your heart. Feel the ground. Let your breath deepen. Notice what's here, if anything, what you sensed, what it turned on in you. When you feel ready to, go ahead and open your eyes and come back here. So what did you guys notice? Was anything different? Was there a different quality to it? Was it easier? Was there anything that stood out to you? Softer. More natural. Nice. Less uncomfortable. Less stories, less mental activity, huh? Yeah. Less noise, yeah. Relax, thank you. Sorry, I missed that. A lot to listen to. Tell me more. What did you notice?
It's not as loud, but there's just so much more to listen to that there.
Did you guys somewhat hear that? He said it's not as loud. There's so much more to listen to. It's like an envelope that keeps opening, right? Beautiful description. That's 100% it. In some ways, it's like this unfolding opening that keeps showing you some new colors. And it's unlimited, you know, according to the level of presence we bring and how available the moment is and who we're with, right? So good. That's it. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's a discovery process, which is what good relating is. Good relating is not getting caught in any boxes that we identify with or stances we take like I'm right, but actually that we keep stepping out of that and go, wait a minute, what if I don't know? What if I think I was accurate about how many times she did the dishes or not, but I wasn't? Good one, right? How often people go like, you never fucking do the dishes or take out the trash, when really maybe they did a month ago. It's not totally true. But if you say it that way, they're going to argue. Right? So another important relational skill that I value a lot is speaking what we call the unarguable truth. So the arguable truth is you always, you never, which is rarely right, right? The unarguable is actually what's actually happening. I'm talking to you, I feel my throat a little congested. I feel a little nervous and scared. I notice I have this story in my mind that you're already angry with me. I'm beginning a doorway to open, right? If I speak arguable, usually I require defensiveness on the other side, or protection, or validation, or justification of why they did or didn't do, or what they really did. Does it ever work? Fucking sucks, right? If I can go to what's unarguable, which is my body sensations, what's happening emotionally inside my landscape of being, or the stories I'm making it up, not the things I believe to be true. Big difference, right? I'm making up the story that I'm talking too fast. May or may not be true, right? Thanks, brother. So this is the opportunity we have is to learn another way of using our language that includes our experience more fully. If my language is primarily a mental babble, it's really limited, huh? And it likes to get entangled and tight and go back and forth and fight and play shit out, right? My body doesn't want to stay in that, right? My body wants to feel open and connected and relaxed and in flow. True? Yeah. So what's an arguable truth? Did you say I'm here? That's probably true, actually. Arguable truths are things that we claim that someone that we can't know did or didn't do. Like, even our perception of what happened in a fight is arguable because we don't have the full perception. Like, you said this and you did this, and you could say, like, you know, my experience was I remember you really yelling at me, and I remember I closed down at that moment. That's unarguable, right? The arguable is, you were a fucking asshole to me. That's arguable. He may not feel that way. He may be like, hey, I was just trying to I'm from Italy, man. I was just trying to tell you what's up. I was just in your face. Right? Oh, thanks, you know. I mean, truly, culturally, we have different ways that we've learned. Or some families, people thrive in being in tension and speaking strongly and being loud. And someone else who's a little more shut down is going to feel like that's aggressive. Doesn't mean it is. Right? Someone could be loud and direct like Bearheart, just I'm full on, here's what I see, here's what's fucking going on for you, bro. And you might be like, dude, he's an asshole. Like, he's cruel. He might go, dude, I love you. I'm loving you. I'm loving you by meeting you as fully as I can in this moment. I'm sorry that it hurts. Right? So as a man, we can deliver some sharp, direct things, but if we do it unarguably, it's going to be cleaner. It has more likelihood to land. Doesn't mean it will. Because most of us are masters at defensiveness. Like, whenever most of us get questioned or challenged, what happens? Yep, we either fight or flight most often. Fear gets activated, and our nervous system is learned to either protect or shut down. Right? That doesn't work so well. I mean, that's why we have wars on the planet most often, is that, like, people just really aren't able to own their thing and share their resources. When it comes down to it, simply put, right? There's a lot going on there. So ultimately, we have this opportunity again and again to discover, like, am I being defensive? Is something in me protecting myself from this person I'm talking to, or could I be open a little bit more? Could I be more curious? Could I really wonder into from my gut and my heart whether what they're trying to share with me has some accuracy to it, even though immediately I'm like, nah, you're off. Could I still be curious? I'm guessing that most of you, with the people that you really respect in your lives, they're really good at not being defended. Feel true? Most of the elders or men that you've met that you're like, I like that guy, that guy's on it, most often they're undefended. Right? They got their hearts open and they're curious, but you can feel their presence of, like, they know who they are. And it doesn't mean they're strong and powerful, it means they're really here. Right? And we don't want to have to wait till elderhood to get really here. Right? Because we don't have very many elders that are really here anyway. Because they haven't been there for a long time, and they haven't had the models either, right? So we're calling that in. So thank you all for taking this in and taking some time to listen to me and sharing. Before we close up, does anybody have a burning question or anything you want to presence in the room? Space? So you said, I'm in a place of discovery. I've got a block, might be fear. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Well, honestly, the fact that you know it and sense it is the doorway into it. Your curiosity of, like, I'm hitting something, maybe it's fear, I don't know, but it's in the way of me really seeing you. Like, I actually feel something, I really want to meet you fully, and I don't know, something's here. And I'm looking at it, I'm curious about it. Unarguable truth, right? Because we don't know what it is. We make stories about what fear, what anger, what sadness is, and even that's just a label. There's this energy surging through us. I mean, today, half the time people moved anger, they moved sadness too. They were blended beautifully together, right? Which is true for a lot of us. So I wouldn't want to identify them as one. So my invitation, though, is to you is go, good, I'm checking this out, I'm curious about it, and maybe it has some reasons, some history, but the next question is, like, what do I really want? Which I'm hearing is, I want the excitement of really meeting you, right? And so the last thing I'll leave you guys with, which really resonates with this, is that the power of our commitment for what we want will move us in that direction. It doesn't necessarily happen overnight, but, like, you know, if I'm really fully 100% committed to meeting the places in my heart that are blocked from really giving and receiving love, they're going to start to open. They're going to start to show themselves. They're going to guide me, whether it's in my dreams, whether it's through a deep conversation with a friend, whether it's through that relating with a partner. They're going to start to emerge. And so I would encourage you, how do you create a safe space that he or she could hear you? And that you actually have the space to bring that, and that she goes, wow, I really feel like you are meeting me just by bringing that. Just by bringing that, you know? Because I don't expect that anybody opens all the way immediately in any relationship. Most of us hit these thresholds and layers that open and deepen again and again and again. And it's really beautiful when you know you're hitting one. Because not everyone knows that. So just the fact that you know you're hitting it, you're home enough in yourself, you're sensing, you're curious, you're grounded, and then possibility opens up. You know? So the last part of that, you don't need to push your way through it either. It's not a problem. It's just something that's happening. And in a really good relationship, when something's blocked, your partner's going to like, okay, I'll stay with you with it. Let's both meet that. Let's discover what that is. Let's find out. It's not really a problem. It will emerge. Just like if you have a disease, it's not going to heal overnight. It's, all right, we're going to have to meet this again and again and again and watch what happens and get the support we can. Is that helpful? Thanks for asking, brother. Thank you all so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Got one more? Yeah, Conscious Loving is one of their famous ones, for sure. They got 30, though, so.
Yeah, this brother moves around with so much grace in this life. Let's just take in a moment of silence, throw our hands up for the four elements, for this brother. Feel this. Feel this. Take us in. Shems, Heartwell, everybody!